everyone, and welcome back to another podcast of the Real CD Show. My name is Chamberlain Burke.
And I'm Devlin Burke.
And this month we are celebrating the rock group Him. This will be our second podcast of the month of February 2020, where we talk about them. And so right now I'm going to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Him album Screamworks Love and Theory and Practice chapters 1 through 13. So the previous album was very dark. We're going to talk about that over the next 2 weeks. This album was a little bit lighter. It received generally positive reviews from critics, and Valo's vocals and songwriting received praise, although the lighter tone of the album received mixed opinions. Again, we're using Wikipedia so that you can either follow along or you can check them out on your own. Devlin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with this album, what you know about it, what you like about it, what your favorite tracks are?
So this is probably my favorite Him album. This is the album I barely skip any tracks on. I married this album, I'm pretty sure I did, the amount of times I've listened to it. My favorite song, I have 4 favorite songs that I have to listen to a couple times. The second track, Scared to Death. The 6th track, Love the Hardest Way. The 11th track, Acoustic Funeral for Love in Limbo. And the final track, which has, I think, the best title in the world. It's called The Foreboding Sense of Impending Happiness. Seriously, if there's a countdown of the top 10 best song titles, that has to be in the top 10. Somebody make that the top 10. Okay, so this album, so the previous album, Venus Doom, we're gonna get into Venus Doom when we do more of their discography. We're focusing on this album, but Venus Doom, just so you know, is intense. It is a very heavy album, and this album, Ville describes. You can see up here, it says a lighter shade of black, which I didn't know black came in lighter shades, but okay. So this album has a lot of literary references. There's a reference from Sense and Sensibility. This is the album that has the Charles Baudelaire reference in my favorite track, Love the Hardest Way. It's track 6. And there's a ton of literary references. Lazarus and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. There's a reference to the Christian Saint Catherine of Alexandria. There's references to Damocles, Cassandra, and King Solomon. Acoustic Funeral is a tip of the hat to Black Sabbath because Black Sabbath has a song called Electric Funeral. Saint Valentine is actually about Saint Valentine. Ville Valo mentions he had to read a lot about Saint Valentine.
So was this song put on this album because it was released in February, or? Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, he did say this is a Valentine's Day gift to myself in this interview that I copied. This album does reference this album was hugely inspired by a muse. There's a woman Mr. Valo had a relationship with, and this album is about that relationship. There's a line in a song called Shatter Me with Hope and the line is, turn to page 43 and you'll know how I feel. And that's a direct message to the muse. So there was a book or something involved, and so there was this relationship. The woman has not been identified, and I don't think she needs to. I think the music speaks to this relationship itself.
And doesn't that put in an air of mystery and kind of make it a little more romantic, and I like that.
I think so, because I noticed in a lot of pop music when they talk about relationships, it's very, very graphic, and there's no, I mean, as much as I like having a song written about me, I don't want people to know what I'm like in bed. So
didn't you say that the overall feeling of this album was a little more poppy than?
Yeah, it was. It's a pop album. There's a few references to it. It is still heavy. Acoustic Funeral is probably one of the heaviest. It's a ballad, but it's a very heavy ballad. I know for a fact that Mr. Valo's favorite song on this album is the song Catherine Wheel, which like I said is about the Christian Saint Catherine of Alexandria. So we have that. Chamberlain, let me ask you a question. I've mentioned all these references here about Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, Lazarus and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and Charles Baudelaire, and Damocles and Cassandra. And I'm wondering, as a mother, I know you're new to this music. How would you feel knowing that your daughter is listening to music that has these lyrical references?
Well, here's the thing. I focus on more literary things. It's something that's substantial. It's something that you can reference. So I really do like these. I think it creates a sense of history. My daughter and I have watched the movie Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, and we've talked about that it's a book. So I like it when there are references either to literary or music. I mean, like I like the fact that Barry Manilow used Chopin in "Could It Be Magic," and so this is actually something that attracts me to this band, even if I hadn't heard of them or heard them. If I heard them as a band, if I knew that there were these references, I would at least investigate the references, find out what they are, find out how they apply to the novel or a painting or whatever. I mean, the song "Starry Starry Night," for instance, and Van Gogh. But then that creates it's actually a good thing for me, because I can talk to my daughter and say, this is a book. It's, you like this music, you like this song, it references this book, and it gets her reading that book. It gets her interested in Jane Austen, Mary Shelley, all these others. And then it just, I really like that it rock music incorporates this, and a lot of people don't know that. And as opposed to more pop songs about, oh my gosh, my boyfriend doesn't like me and I chipped a nail or whatever, this is based on literature and poetry and really famous and beautiful works of art, literary art. So this is actually a draw for me.
Another thing I want to reference about this album is the song "Scared to Death." I want, if you're new to him, or if you or are curious about him, I highly recommend the song "Scared to Death," because I've had this conversation with my mother. I played that song for her, and in the chorus he says, "I am scared to death to say I no," he says, "I am not afraid to say I love you." But then later on in the chorus he says, "I am scared to death to fall in love with you." And yet he puts it in this song, which is a very personal uh announcement of love.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we have this discussion of, what do you mean you're afraid? You're not afraid to say you love me, but you're scared to fall in love with me. It's almost like, I want to fall in love with you, but I'm scared of what's going to happen, because I've had heartbreak in the past, and I don't know how, and I don't want to go through that again, but I'm drawn to you. And I think that's a very interesting conversation to have with anybody, whether you're a music fan or a love fan or anything. This is a conversation. My mom and I have frequently listened to that song and had this discussion several times about, relationships and whether or not they need to be public. And I think that's something very interesting. So when you listen to the chorus, listen for that, because he's, like I said, the opening is, "I am not afraid to say I love you." And then as the chorus ends, he says, "I am scared to death to fall in love with you." I mean, it's a fascinating conversation, I think.
It is. I really like that. One of the things that kind of intrigued me about this album is this muse. And so, as far as we know, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know who she is or who the person is, and that's none of our business. But what do you think about Billy Vallow as a songwriter and an artist? And I know that people who are songwriters and artists and painters and writers and whatever, they have something inside of them that they want to get out, that they deal with, for whatever reason and whatever personal business. Do you have a thought about people? Some people could say they're blaring their business out there. Do you feel this was handled in a respectful way, and that it honored both the muse's privacy but still gave Mr. Vallow a chance to express himself and in essence send her a message?
Good question. I think this did a good job. I'm one of those people where I want your songs. Whatever you're going through, I'm willing to listen to. Your personal life is none of my business. I'm a fan of your music. My joke amongst me and my friends is I'm dating my stereo, and I frequently tell them I've married all my albums. So yeah, this is one of my husbands here. But I personally love the fact that we don't know. It reminds me of that Beethoven letter to Immortal Beloved. We're not sure who Immortal Beloved it is, and I love the fact that we'll never know. It could be Teresa, it could be Elise, I don't know, but I love the fact that we don't know, and I think it's a respect for privacy, and because it's like I've said before, your personal life is none of my business. All I want from you are songs about whatever you're going through and whatever's on your mind. I'm not gonna hoard in on your life, and I think a lot of rock fans feel that way. We don't care who you date. Just give us your songs, and we'll take care of them from there.
And then I think, and that's a very good point that you made. But I think also when we listen to these songs like Immortal Beloved or this album, we're not horning in on their business. We're celebrating this music and this message. And maybe it's applicable to somebody else's situation. But I think like you listen to the songs of Beethoven, thank you for mentioning him. And these songs, we're not sharing in any business of his, but we are celebrating his creativity and his musicality and whatever he's going through.
And I mean, as long as he's in a place where he's happy, but he can still give us songs that we can take. Because I think most of the time, rock fans take the songs and apply them to our lives. We're not really as much concerned about their personal life. Yes, we do develop crushes. We're no different than any other music fans. We like to fantasize about relationships, and we wonder what they're like in private. Are they really this romantic or not? But at the end of the day, we're more about the songs than we are about who they're dating. We're not going to our hearts aren't going to break when they get married, as long as they have someone that's happy, that makes them happy, and as long as they can continue to make good music, I think we're okay with it. But I love the fact that he did this album. And to the Muse, thank you so much for the wonderful songs. We appreciate it.
Okay. On that note, we will close it out. So this is, as I said, our 10th anniversary of Screamworks, Love and Theory and Practice, chapters 1 through 13. It does have its own Wikipedia page. Thank you, Wikipedia. And then check out the album. Go on YouTube and listen to some of the tracks. Check it out. We highly recommend it. Over the next couple of weeks, we will be following up with more information about him and their discography. So, for the Real CD Show, my name is Chamberlain Burke.
And I'm Devlin Burke.
Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.